Hey Afterbuzzers, welcome to episode 4 of All American, They Reminisce Over You. Today we are doing a deep dive into the history of the Grace, Corey, and Billy Baker dynamic. It's going to be amazing. Plus, we have a very special guest, so stay tuned.
I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to Afterbuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Welcome, everybody. We have such an incredible show for you. Wow, like what an episode. I said this last time at the end of the episode, but there were some tears here. It was a tearjerker at the very end. I was not expecting that at all. But yeah, for this week's episode, what we're going to be doing is we do have a special guest, so we're going to format this week's episode with some interview questions up top. Then we're going to do some character dives after that, where we talk about the history of each of these characters and everything that they're going through in this week's episode. And obviously, we have our very special segment called MVP, where we talk about who our favorite character of the week is. Thanks, Ryan. But with that being said, I am your host, Mina Wahab, and to my left, we have a very, very special person in studio with us today. We have Karimah Westbrook. She plays Grace on the show. You give the best mom advice ever. I feel like I need to be adopted by you at this point, so I can get that advice from you.
You got to thank the writers for that.
I know. They really do write the perfect lines, but you bring such a poise to the character, so we're so excited to talk about, your character arc and everything surrounding the show and how you got the role. And then to her left, we have Zakiyyah.
Hello. Hey, guys.
Always bringing the fresh perspective here at All American. And before we go on with the interview portion of this, I just want your quick overall thoughts of this week's episode. It was a heavy one.
If I had to make it super quick, I'm going to say, wow, this is crazy. What's going on? I need to see the next episode now. Because there was so much going on and the character dynamics and everyone emotionally really triggered me today.
Mm-hmm. Same. And I work on this show, and I was very moved tonight watching it. It was very powerful. And I'm excited for you guys to see what happens next.
I do want to know, what was the process like in terms of auditioning for All American and then getting the call that you would be playing Grace? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. I auditioned for All American last year during pilot season. Was it last year? Gosh, I can't remember. I think it was last year. No, season 1 was last year too. So last year I auditioned during a time which is called pilot season. And that's during where new shows are looking to cast actors, and then if those shows get picked up by the network, then they'll air. And it's interesting because I had a busy pilot season, and I remember just being so tired. Like I prepared for the role, and I got there early, and I remember sitting in my car, just talking man, Lord, I'm tired. I always felt burnt out from just auditioning and just nothing. And but I was very excited about the role. I felt like it felt very I got it. I felt like this was me. But you never know. You don't feel like that about a lot of auditions. I got this, and then it's oh, you didn't get it. And so I went in, auditioned, and then I got a call back, and that's when they bring you back to meet with the producers. There's just more people in the room. The first time you go in, sometimes it's just a casting director and their associates, and then they watch the tape, and then more people come back, like the writers and more producers, and they want to see you up close and personal, the director as well. Mm-hmm. So I auditioned again, and then I got a call a little while later and said they want to test you, and that's basically when the networks kind of, the upper level executives get involved, and they look at your tape, they look at your material. Testing there's different variations of testing. Either it can be in person, or this year was a lot of, we're watching the tapes and we're going to just cast people off the tapes. Mm-hmm. And they said, we'll let you know in a week's time. We have 5 business days to get back to you. So during those 5 days, I was like, and it was like a weekend. It was like on a Friday. They like, we'll get back to you
Oh
in 5
no!
business days, right? So I had the
It's like
extra
7 days.
weekend. I was like, oh gosh, just take me out now. And so it was very stressful for me, just because I really wanted it. And I mean, and they literally took 5 days. So it was 5 business days. So it was like, I didn't hear it until like the next Friday.
Yeah.
And I remember I had completely worn myself out, like emotionally, just like wanting to know, and like, oh, maybe they went with a name. And then I went to church like on a Thursday night, and the sermon was something about like letting go, or it was like perfect, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like sitting there, this is like a movie. I'm like sitting there, and I'm like the last person after everyone leaves, and I just like completely made peace with the process. I was like, if I get it, thank you. If I don't, then I know that, it's not for me.
Yeah.
And the next day, I was like, tomorrow's day number 5. I didn't turn my phone on. I like slept in, I was like really just trying to, release the outcome. And then I turn my phone on. I get like all these text messages like, you got it. And I was like, I thought it's so funny because before I actually booked the series, I used to always say, oh my God, you have all these ideas of how you would respond, like, oh, I would ugly cry. I would, I would break down. I would do all these things. But I felt, I did cry, but I was just like, I was just more thankful, but I didn't like have the breakdown. I didn't have the breakdown until we got picked up, because you being cast in the pilot,
right.
There's still more steps to take. I mean, they can cast you in the pilot and then say, that's not really working, So you got to get past that, the table read of them saying, okay, this still works. And then even when you shoot the pilot, them looking at the pilot and say, okay, this still works. We still want to keep her.
Mm-hmm.
So you're still waiting for are we going to pick you up with the actual show? You're still waiting to see if the show is actually going to get picked up,
Right.
and if you're going to get picked up with the show. So it was a little like mental gymnastics for me of just like trying to keep the balance and saying, what's going to be is going to be. But I had a great feeling about the show because the writing was so good and it was very relatable. It was grounded. And so I felt good about it. But, still as an actor, you just don't know if they're going to say, oh, we actually like this person better. You know what I mean? Like, so, and so that was kind of like the process. And then when I got the call that we got picked up, then that was a whole nother response. And it was just like, I think I did ugly cry.
You did go through the motions of that.
That was like, okay, I'm safe to ugly cry when I got the pickup letter that,
I feel like you can't even like breathe until it's like you have all of these small victories as an actor, and you can't fully breathe until like never, honestly. Because then at the end of season 1, you're like, are we gonna get picked up for season 2?
Yeah, exactly.
So I just wonder like how hard it is to stay present, in the role and not think so much about the outcome as an actor, because it is really hard. But you did mention earlier that you almost felt like the role was made for you, or that it felt very close to how you are. What would you say are the parallels between you and Grace on the show?
Well, you know what? I feel like I connected to the world a lot. I'm from Chicago, originally from the west side of Chicago. So I was just very familiar with the world that it took place with South Central. As a filmmaker, I've made short films in South Central, and I really gravitated to that. I grew up as in a single parent household. My mom raised me and my sister. So it was a lot of things that I related to. So it didn't feel very like far from me. Like, I don't have kids, but I don't feel like you need to have kids to understand how to be a mom. The only thing that I was afraid of was that people would think that I would like look too young or something to have kids. Sometimes I get that. People are like, "Why are you?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm old enough to have like 2 kids at that age, but that was the only thing. But I felt like it just felt very familiar, And so in that sense, I just felt like I felt very comfortable. I felt very comfortable in it. And the fact that I love kids, I've worked with kids in the past, and I love my family. I feel like for someone to play a parent or a mother, for a woman to play a mother, I just feel like you really need to want the best for children and to love them and to want to nurture them. I mean, we have a lot of those qualities automatically, so it wasn't a big stretch in that regards.
It feels like you are very close with the cast when we're watching you on screen. What are your off-screen relationships with all the cast members?
I think everything is good. I mean, let's see. I see the boys more because I film with them more on set. Dylan's mom and I, we talk on the phone sometimes outside of work. When we first started season 1, it was very important for me to create. I wanted to create a connection. I wanted it to come off as being real. So I was a little afraid, like, what if we don't click? So in the very beginning, I was like, oh, do you guys want to have lunch? Do you guys want to grab some ice cream? I used to do like little stuff like that, and think of some of the things that they like, just from conversation, really trying to break the ice. So I really was very intentional in the very beginning of our relationship, working together with trying to break the ice because I was nervous. I was like, I want us to connect, and so I worked very hard to try to establish that. And as far as the other cast members, I think everybody is great. We just did something recently. We went to a wolf sanctuary. It was Samantha Logan's birthday. Okay. And another one of the makeup artists on our show, Kelly. We went there and we were like not dancing with wolves, but we were there interacting with the wolves. Nice. And then we did this whole like sound bath, and it was just, and we ate, and it was like we were out far in the desert. And I just love that so much because I don't have family here. Like all my family is back in Chicago. And so I do feel the warmth and the love from everybody from the cast. And I think that everyone hangs out, whenever they do. But for the most part, I feel that everyone is very like open and loving, and it feels very like grounded and real. I think we're all just very excited and feel very like blessed to really be working in this capacity where the energy is very good, from the crew, I think from the cast to the crew, just all around. It's really a beautiful vibe.
And I feel like that does come across on screen,
honestly,
right?
Like, absolutely.
We feel like everyone just clicks so well, and it's obviously good acting, but there's also a rapport there, and I think that's so important. Yeah. But I mean, I just wonder, how do you, like, what kind of research went into this role? Because you mentioned, how your mother was a single mother raising 2 kids. I wonder if you tapped into that at all, or you also said that women, like, as women, we're naturally more nurturing, so it's not super hard to, like, come across that way when we're kind of programmed to be the caregivers for society, essentially. So what type of research did you have to do, whether it was like tapping into your mother or researching the real life story of Spencer James? What did you do to kind of put yourself in that mindset of I am Grace?
Oh, wow. Great question. I didn't, as far as my mom is concerned, raising us, being a single mom, I kind of looked at that and was able to see the stress level that came with it for her, especially just having 2 kids, doing it on her own, and then not making a whole lot of money. So I understood that intellectually, and I also understand that as being an actor, like, I understand like being on a struggle bus and just trying to make ends meet. The biggest thing for me actually to research was football. I had no idea. I didn't know anything about the game. I was like, okay, what position does he play? Okay, so what does that do? And I like watched videos. I did research Spencer. I had a chance to talk to Spencer's mom, Spencer Paysinger's real mom, Autumn, and she's such a lovely lady. So we talked, and I wanted to get a sense of, I guess, the reality of what it was like for her raising the kids. And so that was very helpful. And although my intentions or my goal wasn't like, I want to try to become Autumn, I just wanted to get like a little bit of a perspective on, what it was like with her raising them, like what were some of the things that she did and stuff like that, just to get a little bit of a sense of it. And so that was good. I talked to Spencer Paysinger, and I I think that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I use my imagination, you know, as an actor, so that, you know, really was very helpful. But also, I do want to be a mom. So the fact that I'm looking forward to being a mom. It wasn't like I had to like force myself to like, okay, pretend like you want kids. You know what I mean? It was like
It's
almost
natural.
Like, it was almost like
Right.
a dream come true a little bit, because it's like I don't have kids in real life. You know, I don't know
Yeah.
when I'll have kids, but now I have kids on the show. So it's like almost like a little. It's fulfilling in that way, because you know I'm not an actual mom yet, but
It's like practice, but in a
Yeah.
way.
Oh, it's great.
Preparation.
It's great practice. It's great practice.
So I
Yeah.
have a question, because you've done a lot of acting beyond just All American. I think one that comes to mind is Save the Last Dance. And you also write your own is it series or
Yeah, I've been writing.
Right.
Well, different avenues. I've written web series. I haven't produced anything
Okay.
yet, but I've produced a lot of short films. I've written short films, and I'm working on a feature.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's been different variations of writing.
When did you realize that you had a knack for actually acting? Like, did you look in a mirror and say, "Hey, I want to be an actor," and just start reciting lines or start picking up roles from other former actors? How did you get into it?
When I was a kid, I think the person who really inspired me was Whoopi Goldberg.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I would like watch all of her movies. Well, as they came out, like Color Purple. I remember Jumpin' Jack Flash, Burglar, Fatal Beauty, and I remember watching it. And I used to do stuff for my family all the time, like little skits. Me and my cousin, we would try to like entertain and just do silly things. But when I would see Whoopi, I felt like this could be me. Like I just love what she did. I love how she made me feel. And it's funny because when I first started, I always thought I was going to do comedy, but I've been doing a lot of drama. But
You can still do comedy.
yeah, I guess. But it's just interesting how
Yeah.
what I thought I would be doing, that just never, especially with comedy, it just never unfolded. But a lot of my writing, it falls into my writing. I feel like the comedic aspects of myself. And so yeah, I think that I did it naturally, just entertaining my family, but the inspiration to pursue it came later with like really understanding what Whoopi Goldberg was doing was actually a career that I could pursue. But it was just natural. It felt like it just kind of like
Road.
I have my cousin years ago when VHS tapes were still around.
Yeah.
She sent me a tape, and it was like videos of us performing as kids. And I was like 10 years old, and I was like sitting on the couch, and I was talking about how I'm going to be an actress and all this and that. And I was just like, wow, like speaking it into existence
Right.
at like 10.
To see that progression from childhood to adulthood
It was
is
really crazy.
insane.
Yeah.
And I feel like we did get that on the show here. I mean, this whole show, like diving into it, was about the past and how the past shapes who we are today.
Yeah.
So we did get a little glimmer of that in this week's episode with seeing, younger Corey. We saw younger Grace in the hallway.
Yeah.
We saw young Billy Baker. We saw all of that from the very beginning of, the episode where they are on the football field and they're playing, and you're like, wow, like crazy how much things have changed in the span of X amount of years, and then everything's coming full circle with the reunion, and that brings back all of those memories. So what did you two think about the progression of the relationship between Billy Baker and Corey, and how it's evolved into what it is at the end of the episode, where it goes from they were friends. Obviously, at some point, they didn't get along. They see each other again at the barbecue. Then they have the fight at the dance. And then there's a lot of questions that are finally being answered and kind of like being patched up in a weird way. What did you think of that trajectory?
I loved it. I mean, just seeing it play out. I loved all of their scenes. I cried at the end. It just was very heartfelt, and it's like real life. There's ups and downs, and I feel like what really stood out for me is just how communication could be so healing. If they could have went on and held grudges from high school and never, even at the reunion, never spoke to each other. So it was very nice for them to kind of like hash it out, say what it is, and, move on, because that's what adults do.
Exactly. I thought it was really revealing because we didn't know why their relationship took a turn. We felt like, oh, it was Grace, but we didn't actually understand like the dynamics of it. So for it to be revealed that he got sick and he kind of turned his back on him, his mom was sick and they turned their backs on each other, it basically gave us the foundation of their friendship, and the fact that they came together and could still mend their relationship despite everything that they have been through was like clarity, it was hope. And then when Corey left again, it hurt me really bad, because now I'm wondering, I have a lot of questions. Is Corey sick now, or why is he leaving? I mean, now it's more questions. I didn't like Corey before. I really didn't. He was not my favorite character, but because now I know him, I feel for what he had to go through, and now I'm like, okay, there's a reason behind his disappearance, there's a reasons behind why he's not here. So now I'm like, dang, I didn't want to like him so much, and now I like this man.
I think it's very easy to vilify people, especially when you don't have the full version of the truth. You have one perspective, and it's so hard to know what someone's reality is if you're not walking in their shoes every day. So what I thought was really interesting about this whole trajectory, the one thing that stood out to me were like the coping mechanisms involved, because we see that there are so many different coping mechanisms. You can, in the face of adversity, you can walk away from that adversity and turn your back. You can shut down, you can implode, or you can communicate openly about it. And I feel like this said something interesting about the way men are expected to handle their emotions. Kind of, there's this like, I don't know if you felt it, but I felt like there was this toxic masculinity of, can we really talk about our feelings? Do we have a safe space, or do we just have to man up and, are
you saying like
deal
in
with it
general,
alone?
or
in the show,
in the episode? Okay.
And in the episode, like, it felt kind of like the fact that we find out, Corey just shut everyone out of his life. And walked away from everything because he was dealing with whatever illness he had, and that was how he knew how to cope with it. And then we find out Billy Baker, shuts everyone out of his life when his mom is dying. And this is all like how people act in the face of tragedy. And it's not just these two, it's even how does Spencer react when his loved one is going through tragedy? How does Layla react when she's going through tragedy? I felt like there's this underlying theme of coping mechanisms in the face of adversity. Was there any specific message you took away from that in terms of how different people cope with whatever their hardships are in life, in the episode, their past, whatever their struggles are?
I think I'm so glad you said this. I mean, it's perfect. It's so true. You never know what a person is actually going through, and I think that this episode really highlighted that, because everyone had this idea of Corey and who he was and why he left. He just left for or whatever. And I love the fact that they really show that there's more to this story with a person. There's things, everyone's going through something, and you can't judge a book by its cover, and you never know the truth of what's going on unless people can read your mind. They don't know what you're going through. So it's important that you do communicate, especially to your loved ones. And it's true that everyone copes differently, and those things stem from what they've seen or what they were taught. But I love the fact that the show, I feel like it really, really highlighted that you can't judge a book by its cover. Same with Layla. We had this idea that she had it all together. She was happy and all these things. And now we're kind of seeing a whole nother side that we didn't see a glimpse of that really. Well, maybe we saw a little bit, tiny bit in season 1. But right now it's so elevated. What she's going through is almost like she definitely can't hide it anymore. But you would never know that by looking at her and what she was presenting to the other characters initially. So I love that was kind of like a big thing that the show is kind of doing. That's showing that
Mm-hmm.
there's more to everyone's story, and not just on the show, but just in like in real life, you know. So maybe we shall be slow to judge, you know.
Yeah.
I love that.
I agree, especially with Layla character. I feel like the way she acts sometimes, like you always can relate to like some of the characters in any show, and especially this one, because there's so much, we all go through things, and the way Layla is, she's so smiling, and then she has a mood swing, and then you can see signs of her depression. I'm sure like when someone is being depressed, you know, you can consistently possibly see signs. However, I love that they show the dynamics of her highs and her lows, because it really gives you a better detail. Like you can't judge a book by its cover. I mean, Layla at one point was smiling and happy, and she was hiding it very well, and now she is breaking up with Spencer and being sad, and then she doesn't cry in public, which that resonated with me, because I don't care what I'm going through, I don't cry in public. I'll cry at home. I don't want anyone to see me. I'll put on a harder show rather than being open, and that's toxic, because you need that communication. You need to start communicating with someone, maybe seeking help. So I like that they brought that out, because now it even tells me like, hey, sometimes it's okay to talk to someone. It's okay to be vulnerable. When I'm Layla all the way. I'm like, you ain't gonna see me shed no tear. Either I'm gonna be mad or happy, but I am not gonna cry. That's not me. But I like that they bring out these colors and these dynamics and characters, because it helps you realize some things that you may need to work on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, what do we think is going on with Layla? Because, you know, she's skipping school with Spencer. She's being kind of impulsive, wants to, you know, do things with him either romantically or sexually, like in the house, and then just flips a switch when he mentions the cuts on her arm and says, like, what's wrong with you? These are from my bracelet. And she gets so upset and so triggered and just storms out. And she is on this loop where I feel like in some ways it's like a cry for help, but then when someone tries to help her, they're not doing it in the way that resonates with her, so she rejects the help that she seeks. What's going on with her? It's difficult because it's high school, so do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like she's definitely, we see some changes, so there's definitely something going on with her.
I think
I know. I'm looking at Karimah, and I'm like, I know she knows what's going on with her.
Like slipping in.
Right.
Can we find out anything?
Right. I guess I'll put my point of view out there.
Please.
You know. But I think she is depressed. I mean, there's a lot of signs that she is depressed, and if those are cuts, then she is doing some harm to herself. But I think the problem is that they're trying to help her friends and her peers, and sometimes with situations like that, you have to seek someone outside of your group, because sometimes initially I'm not going to tell you everything that's going on in my mind, because I feel like you know me of another person or another version of me. So for me to show you something else, that's me being vulnerable. And for her, she doesn't obviously want to be that. So I think like they have the right intentions, but maybe they should say, hey, can a counselor or someone who really doesn't know her speak to her, rather than them trying to, because it feels like she's being ambushed for her. Like she's still in that sensitive state. She still isn't really stable enough to even accept their help. And you need to want to receive help as well. So until she actually wants to receive the help, she's going to continuously push them away, which is even worse.
And I think in some ways it's easier to talk to a therapist and a psychologist because you know that they are a neutral observer. They're also getting paid to do what they're doing. They're professionals, and they don't have like any sort of like biased perspective of why they would want you to act in a specific way. They're just here to like listen to you and to be a safe space. And I feel like even sometimes with the people we love, they might give us advice, but it's coming from a biased perspective of we want what's best for you, but what we think is best for you, not what you might actually truly need. So I love what you said about that, like, you know, having a therapist or a psychiatrist come into the picture. And I just don't understand this high school dynamic of, you know, either like kids just living alone. Like, where are the parents? That's so crazy to me, especially like you would think with Beverly Hills it would be different, but then you realize that like regardless of, you know, status, like socioeconomic status, you can still have issues that affect you in that regard. Like money isn't everything.
Yes.
Of course, yeah.
And I saw that you had something when I was doing some research. You said something about that, how, you know, the show, it's like kids from two different worlds, but at the end of the day it shows how we're more alike than we are different.
Yeah.
And I thought that was so beautiful because every one of these characters has something going on in their world, and the show does a great job kind of digging into that. I do want to talk about Jordan, because Jordan, much like Layla to a lesser extent, is going through this downward spiral of his own and just making bad choices.
Yeah.
And Laura stepping in as the mom, trying to put some boundaries, but these boundaries keep getting pushed.
Yeah.
So what are our thoughts on the Jordan situation?
There you go.
I feel like he's just being a child in a divorced situation. I think those outbursts are because you see your family breaking apart and you're seeking refuge into something else that can make you maybe forget about it, or like now you can use your parents against one another, like being manipulative. I don't see it being so super serious as Layla, but it is still a problem. Like, I don't want to minimize his problem because that's not cool. But yeah, to see him being really manipulative for me, I'm just like, you're using this to your advantage right now to get what you want.
I mean, the fact that he could crash the car because, you know, Simone's name keeps coming up on the phone, and that's how the car gets crashed because the girl is obviously jealous. Like, he really is just going from girl to girl and keeping all his options open and taking the car. Like, I feel like we kind of knew something was going to happen because he was going against the confines of what his mom said. I'm just surprised that we didn't see more of Olivia in that situation. I wanted to see her reaction to the car getting destroyed, but Olivia being Olivia is always in other people's business other than her own, so she's here trying to help Layla and help Spencer get to the bottom of this.
Right.
We also see the Coop and Layla dynamic, which I honestly loved. I loved seeing that Coop was just stepping in and, you know, talking about music. And we finally see a different side to Layla that we haven't seen in a while. We just see actual joy. What did you think when you saw that? The fact that, like, talking about music could bring that out of her during this time?
I thought it was great. I mean, again, it kind of goes back to, I mean, I guess there's duality within all of us. And then there's some things that, it's like the balance. There's some things that make us happy. There's some things that makes us sad. And it's like choosing where you want to live. I mean, and it's so funny because this is a show, right? And it's writing, but I think about just like different philosophies of how it talks about life being balanced. And you can always kind of bring yourself back to balance depending on, like, if you're having too much of one thing, you're having too much of like sadness, find the happiness. And that we're watching this show and we see it kind of happen where it was just a different focus. Her mind wasn't in the place of whatever had her in the other place where everyone's like, what's wrong? You know, we got to help her. When she started focusing on something that made her happy, it completely shifted her mood. I mean, and I know that that's not related to this show, but I was just thinking about how that's like real life, right? Where we put our focus and what we choose to focus on, that would completely change our moods. And we actually have control of that, you know, so you could continue to want to focus on the negativity, or you could choose to focus on the light or things that are positive, or you can just start doing positive things to shift your mood. And it's something that's just right there at our hands, but sometimes emotions we get drawn into one place over the other. But I thought that was beautiful, to answer your question. I really love their chemistry together. And Layla, I thought that was nice. So I hope to see more of them.
Same here. And I love that message because here at AfterBuzz TV, our founders, Kevin and Maria, you know, have this saying where they say focus equals feeling, and whatever you focus on is how you're going to feel. So, I think sometimes we do need that healthy distraction of, you don't always have to try to fix the problem. Sometimes you fix the problem by shifting your focus on something that genuinely brings you joy. And I think maybe, like, a prediction of mine is maybe, like, Layla's going to find that joy in one way or another, and that will be her healing in the later episodes. So we'll see what happens with that. But I believe Zakiyyah also has an announcement for us.
I do. Let's focus on AfterBuzz TV right now. We love what we do. Absolutely love it. Bringing to you all the All-American news. Please subscribe. Give us many 5 stars or many thumbs up, if you will. We absolutely love coming back here and speaking on all our after shows, including this one. So just continue to bring the love, spread the love, and we'll do the same.
Yeah, and join the conversation.
Yes.
We read all of your comments on YouTube, and we'll get back to you with that on YouTube, but also in next week's episode on the after show, we will comment on each one of your comments and have the conversation going.
Yes.
I do want to talk a little bit about Grace and Micah, because we have this little love thing going on, but we're like, isn't it? Like, what is happening? He kind of fell off the boat a little bit because you pulled away. Your character pulled away. And then we finally see that very satisfying kiss at the end where we're like, yes. Yes, Corey didn't block it from happening. Yes. Because I know Zakiyyah was during the high school dance. So, what is going on with this Micah storyline? What does Grace really want?
I think Grace is definitely at a point where she's trying to find what makes her happy. It seems like everyone else has moved on with their life, or certain things have come full circle. And it's like, I've spent not all of my life, but a lot of my years just being a parent and focused on raising my kids. So meeting Micah was very exciting for her. And then when Corey came in, it wasn't that I wanted to ghost him. It was just, you guys saw, it was a lot going on, so the focus just wasn't with him. So I think that she's definitely, is hopeful to experience, I want to say true love, but I would say at least companionship or relationship, because she hasn't, as far as I know, she hasn't had one in a very long time.
Yes.
Yeah, it seems like
it. So that would be nice. And I love that they're adding that, because, that's a reality too. It's like, you've been so focused on raising the kids and, paying the bills and doing it on your own. And it's like, you don't even have space. You may not feel like you have space or room to even bring someone else in. So I think now, Grace said, I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to try to rebuild my life, not outside of my kids, because my kids are a part of my life, but, find what makes me happy, because my boys are getting older, and, now too, like Corey being back, there's a lot of things that feels like it's completing, in a good way, so it'll be nice to have.
And I love that when Grace is finally looking out for her own interest, when she's trying to learn and self-actualize, that's when she finds Micah.
It always,
for all you ladies out there, that's like, how do I get a man?
Yeah.
You don't get a man by looking for a man. You get a man by looking out for yourself and doing what makes you happy. The man comes along later.
The man comes along later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's
good point. I thought you were gonna say something else, but
what do you think I was gonna say?
I thought you were gonna say, as soon as I'm doing this, and then Micah, and then Corey comes in.
I thought that too.
I was gonna say,
I was like, he did something.
Because that happens too. It's like when you move on, it's like your ex shows up.
Do you know why?
Yeah,
it's because
right.
exes always sniff when
They can feel it.
when things are going well. They're like, I'm just gonna come in and just blow it all up.
It's literally so annoying.
Yeah.
I really do think that men have a spidey sense for this thing. Like, they know when a girl is single, and they come flocking right away. They just know. It's some weird psychic intuition, I guess.
It's energy.
I feel like just like Grace is looking out for herself, Asher's mom in a way is also looking out for herself, but we don't have the same positive reception to Asher's mom that we have towards Grace. We have a lot of compassion towards Grace, maybe because we know you so well and we've been there since day one in season 1 and we've seen your character arc. But with Asher's mom, she's been out of the picture, much like Corey has, and we kind of are so quick to like vilify her and be like, I can't believe she's sending the divorce papers, just how we can't believe that Corey walked out on Spencer, and we just kind of don't like her. And I know behind the scenes we were looking at this and we were like, what kind of parenting is this? You're gonna see your son you haven't seen in forever and then just drop the news of the marriage and then the divorce papers. So what did we think when there was finally that reunion between Asher's mom and him, and Olivia sitting in on all of this because she knows everything, and then there's just the divorce papers being served? Like, what were your thoughts?
This was literally my button that was pushed. One, when she gave him the divorce papers, I felt like that's not for a child. That's not a child's place. Then when we see her arrive at the door of Harold and they have that interaction, when now we understand that there's a secret. So we don't know what the secret is, but the reason why she's been away is because some type of secret. Then Harold already knew she was getting married to Jacob. I'm like, how did you really know that now since there's a secret? And then for Harold, I'm disappointed in him because both of you are doing bad parenting. You're keeping your child away from his mother, and you as a mother you're allowing it due to some big old secret. So for me, I'm disappointed with both of them. I feel like they're being very irresponsible and they're being very selfish because despite whatever secret you may or may not have, he shouldn't be delivering the divorce papers, and he shouldn't be in this mess. It should be your mess, and then leave him out of it. That's not fair. He's young, and it takes a toll on your youth and who you are and what you're going to produce when you're in high school. If you have so much burden on you, he already had to deal with his dad being a raging alcoholic. Now he's dealing with his mom in the force of being like, oh, I'm going to be with my dad and I'm going to shun you. It's not fair.
Yeah, I feel like kids always get the,
Get pulled in the middle of it.
Yeah, and it's
fair.
terrible.
Yeah.
But do we have any final thoughts about this episode as a whole? Like anything that you guys want to address about how this episode played out with all of the characters, with Layla's character arc, with, Billy Baker and Corey, with everyone? Are there any final things that you want to say about this? I feel like you have all the knowledge, and we're just trying to pull it out.
I'm very limited on what I can say, but no. I mean, I thought it was great. I love the fact that the show is covering teen mental health issues. Just real issues. Even with a kid that's in the middle of two parents going through a divorce. What that does to the child and how it affects them, how they actually deal with it. So there's overcoming past issues with like Billy and Corey. I mean, it covers so many things, as I think a lot of life lessons. Actually, I feel like every time I watch this show, I feel like, oh, there's so many life lessons in this episode, and so I think it was great.
What was your biggest life lesson from doing seasons 1 and season 2?
Oh, I think for me, what I really reflected on, because I didn't grow up with my dad, was Spencer's behavior. I really started to look at my own self as a teen and why I did certain things, like the time where I was angry. It made me look at, did that generate from, was I angry about my dad not being around? Because I had never put the two together because he was just never there. And so I had a lot of like daddy stuff come up for me for season 1, where it had me kind of looking back and reflecting and making peace with a lot of things just through the show. So it was very powerful for me in that way.
Yeah, I think sometimes things hit us at such a subconscious level that we don't even know our behavior is being altered by it.
Yeah.
And we don't even realize, wow, this happened when I was 5 or 7.
Yeah.
And I've been acting this way ever since because it's unresolved.
Yeah.
And I think it's so beautiful when you can have that level of self-awareness and be like, oh, like, I don't have to be this way anymore. Like, I can release myself from the thought that I made about myself because of this.
Yeah, the story. We all create stories about ourselves based off of something that happened. So Spencer had this idea that his father abandoned him, and it was something that just drove him to, he had anger and all these things. And then for myself, I created a story too, and that drove me to, behave and do all type of things as well too. So it's very deep.
It is.
It is.
So I think that's one I can remember for season 1. I don't season 2. We'll talk after.
We'll talk
after
afterwards.
episode
Yes.
16.
After
we
we
can
have
revisit this.
many more episodes on the way.
Yeah.
We do have to wrap up this week's episode with our special MVP segment. Yes.
Okay, guys, so I'll make this quick. So my MVP moment goes to Laura today because that power suit, first of all, was bomb in the red lipstick. But not just that, she really put her foot down as a parent and said, you're going to be grounded until whenever I tell you to. I remember I did something, I stole my mom's car and did a whole bunch of stupid stuff. Yeah. And my mom said the same thing. I'm going to ground you until you turn 21. She was serious. And I think as children, we don't like that, but that's needed. So congratulations, girl. You are the MVP. And I did want to just throw this in here really quick, but you guys are talking about like what we go through and everything. And I know for me, I watch something and I always, for anyone else who's going through anything, I always like to tell myself that I'm not my past. I'm not whatever mistake I made. Yeah. I'm not, I don't have to keep predicting my future, and just to stay present in the moment and to do things that will be positive for the next day, but to remember to just continue to be gracious. So for anyone who wants to wow,
I want to that was really good.
I literally have to tell myself that every day.
Yeah.
It's a everyday struggle, but it helps because for everyone who's going through something, it's don't be your past. Don't try to be your future self because you're not that yet either.
Yeah. It's true.
Karimah, do you have an MVP?
Ooh,
I can say my MVP without a doubt is Grace.
Of course.
Thank you.
And not just in this episode, but I feel like, yes, thank you, Ryan. I feel like every single time Spencer is going through something, you have the perfect words to say. It is just, of course it's written in the script, but you deliver it with such a poise and nurturing energy where you just... It's like Oprah, Super Soul Sunday, sound bites, words of wisdom. I'm like, wow, I never thought about approaching the situation this way. And there's such a calm energy to how you say things. And I just feel like when I watch Grace on camera, I'm like, okay, wow, yes, she made these mistakes. And it's like, wow, she made this mistake. I can't believe she did this. But I'm not quick to vilify your character for doing it because I see what an amazing mom you are on the show. And that just makes me feel like, wow, even in this week's episode, you put yourself first. You're always a self-sacrificing mom, but now you're like, okay, I'm going to take time and get to know Micah, and this is happening. Yeah. And I just loved seeing that in the episode.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Do you have an MVP?
Oh, I would say Layla.
Layla?
Yeah, I would say Layla. I really, I guess I really just connected with her pain.
Yeah.
And the whole thing of being uncomfortable, being vulnerable. I feel like I've definitely grown out of that, but I really could relate to it. So, yeah. Her and Lord's. I mean, it's it's everybody.
It's hard.
They're all the MVP. I don't know.
Everyone gets a participation.
Right. I literally always have to tally up who I said because I'm always choosing different characters because everyone has amazing traits.
I mean, because Billy made me cry today, so it's like.
Corey made me cry at the very end. I couldn't handle that. I was like, not again. Don't repeat the same mistake. Please learn from the past. The past is there so that you can learn from it.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll find out what happens in next week's episode.
We're not back until November 11th.
November 11th. Okay. I guess we won't be back until November 11th with a new episode. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today, Karimah. You've been amazing. We've had so many great golden nuggets from you. Any upcoming projects or anything you want to plug before we head out?
Yes, 2020, After We Collided. a film that is written by Anna Todd. She wrote a after series, a collection of books, teen romance books, and it'll be out in 2020. I play Karen Scott, and I'm a mom, and yeah, I'm very excited about that.
And where can everyone find you on Instagram, Twitter?
On Instagram, I am only the #1 in Karimah, and that's the same handle on Twitter as well.
Okay, perfect. You know where to find Karimah. And Zakiyyah?
Hi guys, you can find me at Zakiyyah _, on Instagram.
And I'm your host, Mina. You can find me on Instagram at Mina Makes Magic. Thank you so much again for tuning in, you guys. Karimah, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Same.
And
you guys are great and so smart.
thank you.
Yeah, so smart. I love this.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll see you all on November 11th.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.